Ever hear of a grown man screaming over a goat? I did. And trust me, it wasn't because the goat was doing something cute. No, this was different. This was because my prized cheese wheel, something I'd nurtured for over 6 months, had vanished from my cellar, and I suspected someone with a lot of nerve was behind it. It all started that morning. I went to check my cheese rack expecting to see my latest creation, an aged cheddar I'd carefully rolled and cared for, sitting proudly on the 3rd shelf alongside my pepper jack and rosemary Gouda. But what I saw made my stomach drop. The shelf was empty, not knocked over, not broken, just gone, as if someone had spirited it away like a thief in the night. I double-checked, counting the wheels meticulously. I knew my cheese, and I knew I hadn't miscounted. My cellar isn't just a storage space. It's a living, breathing part of my farm. I control every breath, every drop of moisture, every note played on the radio that keeps the cultures thriving. So, when the second wheel disappeared the next day, this time a spicy pepper jack, I knew I wasn't imagining things. Someone was robbing me, and they knew exactly what they were doing. I kept quiet. In my small town, gossip spreads faster than butter melting on a hot skillet. If I told anyone I'd been robbed, people would start whispering, pointing fingers, and suddenly, I'd be the talk of the town for all the wrong reasons, especially with Karen Dellington, the self-appointed queen of this neighborhood, constantly lurking around wearing her pearls and clipboard, acting like she owned the place. She was the kind of person who made petty rules into community commandments. First, she complained about my goats making noise, then about my barn being too red, and now she was meddling in my business more than ever. But I had my suspicions. Karen was always wandering late at night claiming she was on patrol, though nobody knew what for. Last year, her biggest scandal was painting her chicken coop, bright blue of course. And the year before, she tried to get my goat Bucky banned from the local livestock list because he once rammed her garden gnome into her bird bath. That's Bucky, reliable, angry, and a legend around here for a reason. That evening, I decided to set a trap. I cleaned the cellar, restocked everything, and made it look untouched. But I left a small wildlife camera hidden high up in the corner, right behind the air duct. Motion activated, night vision, no sound. I placed a wedge of aged cheddar, my pride, right in the middle of the shelf. I wanted to see if the thief would come back. That night I sat in my barn, watching the live feed on my phone. The house was quiet, the moon casting shadows over the fields. Midnight struck. The camera flickered, and for a moment, all I saw was dust motes dancing in the beam of the moonlight. Then, at exactly 12:42 a.m., the cellar door creaked open. Held my breath. A faint light spilled into the darkness as a figure tiptoed inside. My heart hammered, not out of fear but pure fury. It was Karen. She wore her usual hoodie, gloves, and carried a basket like she was sneaking out with stolen treasure. She moved with purpose, sniffing the cheese, slicing off a corner with a silver cheese knife, and taking a bite as if sampling fine wine. Then, in a move that made my jaw drop, she tucked the wedge into her basket and slipped out as silently as she'd entered. She knew the camera was there but didn't care. She winked at it, confident she was getting away with murder, or at least my cheese. I stared at the screen, disbelief turning to rage. That wasn't just theft. It was an invasion. My labor, my passion, my livelihood. She was stealing it like it was her right. I wanted to call the police, but I knew better. Karen was the law around here. Chair of the neighborhood watch, friends, with the deputy's wife and the queen of petty enforcement. No, I had to handle this myself, and I knew exactly how. Out back, behind the barn, lived Bucky, the goat who hated Karen more than anyone. Not just a regular goat, but a beast with a reputation. He was massive, with a scar across one horn, eyes sharp as razors, and a temper that could start a stampede. He'd once smashed a gnome so hard it flew into her bird bath, shattering both. The town tried to ban him, but the bylaws were clear. Bucky had rights and Bucky had rage. I went to see him that night. "Bucky," I whispered, "we're going to teach her a lesson." That day I started training him using the same bell Karen wore on her purse as a signal. Every time I rang it, Bucky learned to charge, faster, angrier, more focused. I hid lavender-scented cheese wrappers around his pen, knowing that smell would trigger his fury. I fed him extra oats, gave him room to run, and most importantly, drilled into him that when he heard the bell, it was game time. Over the next few nights, I watched her grow bolder. She took 2 wheels of cheese in one night, sampled the Gouda, and even started labeling the shelves with sticky notes like she was claiming my property. The nerve. She wasn't just stealing anymore. She was claiming territory she had no right to. So, I set my plan in motion. That night, I rigged the cellar with a new setup, a fresh wheel of rosemary-infused cheddar, a dim lamp for effect, and a hidden sensor linked to Bucky's collar. When she took the bait again, Bucky would be ready. Midnight. Karen arrived like clockwork. Hoodie pulled low, flashlight flickering, she slipped into the cellar. As she reached for the cheddar, the sensor triggered. The door swung open electronically. Bucky, waiting behind the barn, heard the signal. With a thunderous stomp, he charged, hooves pounding, horns lowered. What happened next was chaos. The camera on Bucky's collar jostled wildly as he stormed in, knocking shelves, scattering cheese and herbs everywhere. Karen, realizing she'd been caught, screamed as she tried to run. But Bucky was faster. He boxed her in, horns inches from her face, snorting in warning. She slipped on a rolling cheese wheel, went tumbling backward into a barrel of brine, and landed with a splash that echoed through the cellar. There she sat, soaked, stunned, covered in brine and cheese bits, while Bucky stood over her, chewing thoughtfully on a stray wax wrapper. I watched it all unfold, my fists clenched and my heart pounding with satisfaction. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I knew Karen wouldn't show her face. Her reputation, her pride, everything was shattered. And I had it all on camera. The footage would be my proof, my justice. But I didn't rush to release it. No. I wanted to savor the moment, to make sure everyone saw what a woman with a clipboard and a sense of entitlement could really do when faced with a goat, and a man who refused to be bullied anymore. The story was only just starting, but for tonight I let Bucky rest, knowing that justice had been served, goat style. The shriek ripped through the still night air, a sound that echoed the terror in my heart. You're the one who took it. A woman, Mrs. Gable, her face pale and wild, pointed a trembling finger at Bartholomew, the goat. Bartholomew, bless, his heart just stared, chewing on a stray dandelion. I'd found her. Red-handed, or rather red-hooved, in my cellar. Not just any cellar, mind you. This was my sanctuary, my cheese haven. Rows upon rows of aging treasures, each wheel a testament to months of meticulous care, and now one of my pride and joys, a 6-month-old cheddar, was gone. Vanished, poof, like a wisp of morning mist. But how? Mrs. Gable stammered, her eyes darting between me and the goat as if seeking an alibi. I swear I didn't. Her voice trailed off, lost in the thick, musty air of the cellar. I knew better than to believe her. Mrs. Gable, a notorious gossip and a collector of rare but useless trinkets, was hardly known for her honesty. I'd seen her eyeing my prized cheddar from across the market square several times, and now here she was, caught red-handed. Or rather, goat-handed. "You've been sneaking into my cellar," I said, my voice low and firm, the words like a hammer, blow. "You've been coveting my cheese, and you planned your heist like a seasoned thief. I swear I didn't know it was yours," she protested, her voice laced with a desperate plea. "I thought it was just abandoned cheese." Abandoned cheese? My meticulously crafted aged cheddar? A smile twisted my lips. The perfect alibi, the perfect cover. But something felt off. The goat, Bartholomew, was acting strangely. He was nervously licking his udder, his eyes wide, reflecting the flickering candlelight. Then, a flicker of something else in his eyes. A glint. Not of innocence, but of something else entirely. "Maybe," I said, my voice laced with suspicion. "The real culprit is closer than you think." I glanced at Bartholomew, a slow smile spreading across my face. The goat shifted uncomfortably. I knew somehow that the truth was far more complex than it seemed. And the cheese, well, the cheese was just the beginning. The barn door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet night. I watched her stumble, soaked in brine and cheese, slipping on the slick floor, her face twisted in shock. Bucky stood over her, horns lowered, eyes blazing with victory. I hit play on the footage one last time, watching her frantic escape, the chaos she'd unleashed, the fury of a goat who finally fought back. She had no idea I'd set everything up, every trap, every signal, every move. That moment, her arrogance shattered in a splash of brine and a flurry of flying cheese wheels, was the culmination of months of planning. And I knew the footage would change everything. The camera's recording showed her slipping, tumbling into the barrel, then Bucky's massive form blocking her path, horns inches from her face. Her screams echoed as she begged, her hands flailing, trying to crawl out of the mess she'd made. But Bucky, calm now, chewed on a wax wrapper like a judge passing sentence. I'd told him what to do: charge, intimidate, make her realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. And he had delivered a verdict sharper than any court. I uploaded the video to every platform available. Within minutes, it went viral. Millions of views, shared across every corner of the internet. People cheered, joked, and even started calling Bucky the hero of the century. But what really mattered was what the footage revealed. Karen's arrogance, her theft, her lies, all laid bare with a goat's justice. And then, the twist. 2 days later, I received an envelope at the farm. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Karen, soaked and stunned, sprawled in the barrel, her face a perfect mask of humiliation. Beneath it, a note scrawled hurriedly, "You got me. But this isn't over." That's when I saw it. A faint outline of a shadow behind her in the photo. Someone else was there, hiding, watching. Someone who knew her secret. Someone who had been pulling strings from the shadows. My heart pounded. I remembered her smug smile when she took the cheese, her confident wink at the camera. She thought she'd outsmarted everyone. But she never saw the real game, the unseen hand pulling the strings all along. Suddenly, it hit me. This wasn't just about theft or a petty neighbor's petty revenge. It was a war, one I'd ignited with a goat's charge, but one that was far from over. Because the real master plan was still hidden, waiting to unfold. And I was ready. Bucky was ready. The unforgettably shocking ending? As I stared at the photo, I realized the shadow wasn't just a person. No, it was a drone, a high-tech camera, hovering silently, capturing everything. Karen had a secret accomplice, someone with access, someone with technology, someone who had been watching all along. And now I knew. She wasn't just a petty thief. She was part of something bigger, something dangerous, something that would change everything forever. And the moment I saw that shadow in the picture, I understood. One thing, this was only the beginning.